All right, let's move on to Week 2 games. This is a tougher slate. Week 1 had a whole bunch of premier matchups. Week 2, it seems like year in, year out, the matchups are a little bit more sparse, but the battle for Zollner Stadium is always a key game. Dwenger, Concordia. The Saints didn't get tested in Week 1, 52-6, I believe, over Southside. We know about Concordia. How do you see this one going? What are some keys?
I think the keys, once again, is Concordia dominating the line of scrimmage. If they can control line of scrimmage, and that's going to be tough against Dwenger, obviously. Dwenger's just an unknown because they did play South, and South is a transition year for Southside right now. So it's going to be interesting how those two teams come out because we've seen Concordia beat who we believe is a solid team in Northside Week 1. We saw Bishop Dwenger dominate Week 1, which we expected. But it'd be just interesting to see how they match up because, a lot of unknowns for Dwenger right now and guys that we really, not that they can't execute, just we don't know who they are.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this, I did get to see part of this game. Dwenger scored early and often, so I didn't get to see all their number one guys, but they had their timing down like you wouldn't believe for the pitch. I mean, Cody Miller, the rest of the guys, whoever was running quarterback, it was beautiful. So that's kind of like one of the things that you love to see is they might not be the biggest on paper like they have been in years past, but they got the timing down Week 1. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, for sure. If you're waiting for a night where Dwenger's not going to come out fundamentally sound, you're going to be waiting a while. So if they got that stuff down, it's trouble.
Yeah, pretty good. 45-0 at halftime in that one as they rolled. Heritage at Norwell is an interesting game. The Heritage opened with New Haven. Last year they lost to New Haven 61-21. This year, much closer, 31-21. Obviously, New Haven, a bigger school, a bigger program. But what do you see going into this game? As you mentioned, all the injuries for Norwell. It could be a tough one at the Courtyard.
Yeah, for sure. Norwell has to go to Heritage after playing Leo. They had a tough non-conference for Norwell to start off Week 1 and 2. We'll see how they bounce back. They got that win in the bank, and you got to see if these guys can come back and play. Heritage, slow start last week against New Haven, brought it back. Brenton Dawson was really impressive for Heritage, especially later in the game. New Haven gave him a couple short fields and a pick six, I think. So, made it a little bit closer than it looked. But Heritage, they need to get that offensive line straightened out. They need to get the running game going. They really just couldn't get anything going in that respect against New Haven. So that's going to be important against Norwell on Friday.
And credit to New Haven, Jakevius Hampton. Again, like Oaks, one of the best linemen in the NHC. He's going to be a force. And Hoffer up there cleaning up stuff. Travis Crow had a pick. I mean, those guys look pretty good on defense. New Haven's defense gave up about 14 points a game last year. We like to talk about their offense, but their D has been better year in and year out, I think, than we give them credit for.
Yeah, for sure. And we go back to Homestead. And which NHC defense can slow Homestead down? It could be New Haven.
Yeah, very good point. Lures at Northrop. Obviously, the big key for Week 1, I'm laughing because the numbers are not what Jason Dorfler.
Yeah, I'm sure Jason Dorfler was like, if I'm not going to cry, I just got to laugh at this point.
I know, I think I know what the focus and practice is going to be this week. He's going to be hanging on to the football, not turning the ball over. Northrop fumbled 5 times, lost it 3 times, threw 6 interceptions, so 9 total turnovers against East Noble. You're not going to beat anybody with 9 turnovers, let alone East Noble at East Noble.
Right.
So what do you take away from that game, knowing that they're probably not going to turn the ball over 9 times in a single week for the rest of the way on out? And maybe we haven't even seen what Northrop can do when they're not turning the ball over.
Yeah, that's the thing, is when you turn the ball over, over half of your possessions, what do you have? Other than where you cannot, get extended drives going if you're just handing the ball to the other team. So when you throw 6 interceptions, 5 between 2 quarterbacks, there's a battle there. Who's going to emerge there at the quarterback spot? And, Northrop obviously, like you said, all week this week in practice, I'm sure is going to be ball security and ball control and see what they can do and try to get some momentum going offensively, which they couldn't do last week.
Now, Week 2 last year, Northrop came into Lures Field and beat them in overtime.
Right.
How hungry do you think this Lures team is? Because they came out and they punched Snyder in the mouth, up 14-3 at one point early on. And they were quick striking the Dwenger scrimmage. Yeah. So how excited are they to get things rolling in this one?
Coach Lindsay tells me after the game, after the handshakes, we go over, our guys are huddled up, they're ready, they're down, there's some tears, but they were focused, they were ready. And that was something he liked to see as opposed to last year after losses. So last year, the loss to Snyder is big, but then they come back and then they lose, like you mentioned, the devastating loss in overtime, the bad PAT snap, they lose 14-13 in overtime. Let's see what Lures does now Week 2. Okay? Can they put Snyder behind them? An emotional loss, but they were still focused. Saturday morning, Coach Lindsay said, they were there, they were ready to move on. This is a game Lures really needs to come out, punch an opponent in the mouth, and win a big game.
And your guy, Tyrell Johnson, Came up with a big play again.
He did, but that's the uncertainty. Is he rolled an ankle late in the first half against Snyder, was kind of hobbled the rest of the game, and I thought that was as much of a loss defensively as it was offensively on Friday night. David Turner is just wide open those 2 touchdowns late in the game. No Terrell Johnson, who was their best lockdown corner in my opinion. He's out of the game. What ifs? If Terrell Johnson can go 100%, he's on David Turner in my mind, especially late in that game after the first touchdown. He's getting the ball. Maybe a little bit different. So I think the best two-way player right now for Luers right now, Terrell Johnson after 1 week. Hopefully he's 100% on Friday.
Yeah, and a good leader too. And,
yeah, no doubt.
Obviously a great basketball player as well, so we've seen plenty from him. Garrett at DeKalb becomes an interesting game because I thought DeKalb looked really good at Angola. I was at practice a couple weeks ago talking to Pete Kempf, and things, when you say them, you take them into account, but you have to see it for your eyes, especially when you've had the rough few years that DeKalb has had.
Yeah.
They seem to do exactly what Coach Kempf was wanting them to do. They played tough. They ran the ball. They got a big play from Will Chrisman, who's a 6'6" athletic wide receiver. And Garrett did what we thought they were going to do. Chris Depew wants them to pound the football, be a big offensive machine, and then stop people on defense. They beat Prairie Heights 39-7. How do you see this one playing out?
Talked to Coach Kempf yesterday, and they were excited, obviously, with the win Friday. But he said, there was 2 teams that are a lot alike. New coach, new system, not a lot of numbers. But it was a game that, obviously in the past, DeKalb just couldn't win. They scored 19 points in the second half, I believe, or last Friday, and they hadn't scored more than 19 points in a game last year, all but once. So that's huge for them. And Coach Kempf says, we're going to find out a lot more about our team Friday night against Garrett. We got to win in the bank. That feels good. But now we go in against a Garrett team that's established. We know what they're going to do. They're going to pound the run. They're going to try to dominate the line of scrimmages. Let's see if our guys can kind of take a punch in the mouth and recover. And I think you're going to find a lot more about DeKalb this Friday than you did last week.
All right, but it gotta feel good if you're a DeKalb fan to get that win under your belt.
I mean, it's huge. We saw it last year with Norwell 0-5. We saw it with Luers last year. Getting that win in the bank, being 1-0, you don't want to be 0-2, 0-3, 0-4, because then things just start steamrolling. These are high school kids. They're emotional kids. Things just happen. So getting that first win, whether it happens week 1, week 2, it's huge.
All right, and some other big games, Delta at Northside, Belmont at South Adams, Wayne at Kokomo, both Wayne and Kokomo with huge wins last week. Perhaps a better pairing this week as far as competitive nature goes in that game. I know they're happy about the win.
Yeah, they're happy. Yeah,
slightly,
no doubt.
Slightly. All right, well, we'll be back next Monday to talk about week 2 games and also look ahead to week 3. But for this week, he's Justin, I'm Glenn, and we'll see you next Monday.